Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Yo, I'm doing good.
It's great, Matt. We're here another week with one of our other best friends in the whole wide world, Rakush. Hey, Rakush.
Konbanwa.
How are you doing?
大丈夫です。
Hi.
Cool. I see you went to Japan for the first time this year, and glad to see that really made a big impact on your life, like all my other friends who went to Japan for the first time. So can't wait to see you there in 2026. But before then, friends, we have to get through a winter season here in Canada. And boys, not having the best time right now at the Mistake Zone HQ. I think I sent you guys some photos where in front of our place, we have one of those green boxes, those electrical green boxes. I don't know actually what's inside said green box, but that's completely covered. I can't tell if it was, I think one day we got 5 centimeters, next day 10, next day 20 centimeters. And I think the issue with the Mistake Zone HQ is that we're in a court inside a side street, inside another side street, so you can bet that no one plowed any of those streets. So trying to drive from the Mistake Zone HQ to civilization feels like we're off-roading, boys. And when there are cars parked in the side, despite having winter tires, not the greatest feeling. Where I was also around the Saturday Morning Arcade Clubhouse, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but not really that brutal up there.
No, we had snow for maybe, snow on the ground, for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then this past weekend it was kind of rainy, so I kind of got rid of most of it.
And I think this week we're going into double-digit weather once again. Rakush, what do you think of global warming?
It exists.
Does it though?
I don't know. It does, I guess.
Can you prove this?
I'm not a scientist. I do a podcast with you guys.
We're a nerdy adjacent poopcast, and boys, I'm sad. I'm sad because weather guts me down. If it isn't the snow on the ground, it's probably the double-digit temperature in December, but that's part of our growing pains. Rakush?
Yeah.
I know you proposed to us earlier this week just a little recap to break the chain of, our constant talks of consumerism. So what's the next best thing that reunites or unites us friends? And that's the fact that we're all getting older and our bodies are slowly breaking down because we're losing to father time. Rakush? Let me know about your latest bout with Father Time.
So, the latest bout with Father Time is more about just being in a corporate setting with the next generation, right? And we're dealing with kids that are, I guess, born in the early 2000s. They're not kids. They're they're young adults. Yeah, they're young adults. They're in their early 20s and stuff. But hey, we're old. We're 35. And anyone 10 years plus to me is still kid-ish, kid-adjacent. So this came up at work last week where someone that was born in 2000 did not know who Limp Bizkit was. And I get it. Listen, Limp Bizkit was their peak was kind of the late 90s, early 2000s. So I do understand it a little bit, but it's just when you're not mentally prepared to remember that, oh yeah, I'm 35, that's just still kind of it's a whiplash effect. So you hear that and you're how is that possible, right? But then you do the math on how separated we are from Limp Bizkit. Think about it like this. Limp Bizkit, we said their peak is 99, 2000, 2001. That's 25 years ago. 25 years before 1999 was 1974. that's like the equivalent, I guess, of like us back in that day, or like, someone that is 35 back in 1999 having that realization that like someone that is 25 in 1999 doesn't know who like a Jimi Hendrix might be, or like who someone from the Doors might be. And like, I don't know, man, that stuff's kind of blowing my mind. It's like another different way of finding out that I'm old, but man.
We live in a world where a youth may know Fred Durst from his minor role in I Saw the TV Glow rather than his career as frontman of Limp Bizkit. Mm-hmm. And yes,
that's
I think
wild.
that should make you feel old, Rakush, because we are, in fact, old.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think when I started working with people, a few years ago who were born, let's say the 96, 97, 98, 99 range, I think that's initially super jarring, but, not to... I don't even know if this is a flex per se, but I also feel like I'm a man-child, and I still am able to connect on a level that, we can find common grounds in our destructive behaviors of following gacha games or following particular manga releases that makes you feel a bit younger than you actually are. So, Rakush, I ask you, have you ever thought of potentially ruining your life and your wallet by playing gacha games?
I mean, yeah, One Piece.
Oh, yeah.
Fair. Very fair.
I feel like I was at the ground floor with the gacha games. I just kind of got off after like 10 floors. Like, I didn't really get into like, a lot of like the newer gacha games, I guess, right? Like, I just kind of was playing One Piece for the fandom of One Piece. Or like, if I ever got into any other gacha game, there was a certain element of like a pre-existing franchise that I was kind of jumping into, or like a pre-existing like Devil Summoner 2 was an Atlas gacha game. Atlas gacha games mean that you have all of your summons and stuff like that, so there's still that familiarity there as well. So I don't think I've ever gotten into like an original gacha game.
Ooh.
But yeah.
Matt, as the youngins on this podcast, because we play Zenless Zone Zero, how does it feel that you share a podcast space with an old man like Rakush?
Oh, man. You know what? Like, I think I should start, acting my age and be like Rakush. But, Jaren, you pulled me into the gacha space, and I really liked Arkanites. And when it pulled in the Monster Hunter franchise, I got, pulled in a second time. And now I'm pulled into Zenless Zone Zero. And, Jaren, I hate that I'm in this space.
It's not a fun space.
Jaren, I know this is going to cost me so much money. Like, I'm looking at Zenless Zone Zero, and I'm like, oh, I got a warning earlier today, like 2 hours ago, saying, hey, the battle pass is going to, expire in 7 days. And I am legitimately wondering, should I buy the battle pass? Because, I've completed the battle pass already, but I haven't, gotten the premium portion of the battle pass, which is a lot of, nice stuff. And there's cheap rolls in there that I could get for, not a lot of money. And I hate that I'm in this space.
Matt, as someone who purchased a medium Domino's pizza earlier before we recorded, just think it's either the premium battle pass or a medium Domino's pizza for the month. Just put it in perspective.
See, Jared, but I'm so irresponsible that I'll do both anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask, ¿por qué no los dos, friends?
I mean, you're also talking to the person who purchased the premium battle pass for the month and the medium Domino's pizza, where I love how, even though I tried to shy away from the consumerism discussion, I think that's actually the fourth pillar of the mistake zone, and us coping with the hellscape that we all now live in. But now that I opened the gacha floodgates, boys, I've been playing a surprise new gacha that released a bit late last week, and I'm talking about Infinite I want to say Infinite Nikki because Infinity Nikki I don't think is a good name.
Is it
Is
not?
that-
Wait, what is it actually?
It's Infinity Nikki,
Oh, okay.
where there's something about infinity ending with a Y leading into Nikki that doesn't have a good roll off the tongue feel, in my opinion.
You know what it is? It's the amount of syllables in both words not matching up.
Yes. I can also see that being the point where, I don't know, Infinite Nikki, I feel like just flows better, but Infinity Nikki, that ain't right, man. That's
Yeah.
unnatural.
I mean, Infinite
feel you.
Nikki
I
has
agree.
like the same ending kind of like E noise to it, so I can kind of see that. But I do understand
Yeah.
like, the cadence of Infinite Nikki is better.
Definitely. Where that, I feel like I need to force myself to call it Infinity Nikki, where it just doesn't roll off the tongue a bit better. But naming conventions aside, I played, I want to say, 2 hours since the game launched, and that, in terms of getting to your first gotcha, or at least the gotcha microtransaction window, or having those options open, that kind of takes, around 20-30 minutes to kind of get into. But this is, of course, the latest installment of the Nikki franchise, where it joins the rank of Love Nikki and Shining Nikki, and friends of Saturday Morning Arcade will remember that I was a big fan of Love Nikki Dress Up Queen mobile game for a good 2 years there. I believe, Matt, I think I told you the reason I stopped playing Love Nikki is I remember being on vacation in Vancouver. And after a year of doing dailies and grinding mats, I finally was able to craft one of the lifelong hell suits or lifetime suits, which is essentially a outfit combination compiling of different accessories, of different clothing items. And when you put them all together, you get a big bonus. And of course, with the name of lifetime dress, lifetime suit, that will take a lot of your time and dedication to work towards. And once you finish one, you begin the hamster wheel run all over again for the next dress that you want to kind of craft and complete. And I think it was something about sitting on vacation, looking at years worth, quote unquote, just checking this app like once a day for a year straight, that got to me where I thought, okay, I'm not getting anything out of Love Nikki anymore. The story is getting a bit more convoluted. So I think I'm going to, dress my character up as Miku one more time and then uninstall the app, which I did. Where booting up Infinity Nikki for the first time, you can totally tell that it is in the same vein as the Hoyoverse games, specifically the Genshin variety, where this is a open world, adventure game. You can totally see just during the tutorial when you're, learning the controls, learning, moving with your character and doing your jumps, your attacks, you can definitely feel that, I don't know, it feels like Genshin. So it's one of those types of games. And as you kind of progress through the story, you kind of get introduced to all the trappings. And once again, you're introduced to these outfit battles. And that's, works similar to how they worked in Love Nikki, where, you get a task, you're either battling another stylist, or you get a side quest where you have to put an outfit together. And then you have to go through your entire wardrobe, each with their different tags, saying, oh, this might be an elegant dress, this might be a cute shirt. And then you're supposed to put an outfit together, not necessarily to make something aesthetically pleasing, but to kind of min-max, okay, this battle requires me to have a bunch of elegant items, so I just want to stack all my elegant items in that regard. Where the gotcha mechanics kind of come into place is, again, similar to Love Nikki, where you're rolling for dress parts. And one thing that the community has flagged, especially players who have been following Love Nikki for a long time, is the gacha rolls are notably more pricier than the Love Nikki variety, which, makes sense. These are all modeled. You can actually wear them, and when you're normal Nikki and not necessarily doing your action moves, you're just dressed up as whatever items you have equipped. But it's the fact that the whole monetization for Love Nikki are these dress or outfit banners where you want to complete these hell dresses, just because the amount of money you have to put towards rolling these gachas is hellish, and that's what the community kind of deemed it. So again, you're not necessarily it's a single player game, but for when you do any clothing related quest, clothing related battle, just having those more extravagant pieces, those gacha pieces, will make things a lot more easier to use. So you're not necessarily paying to win in a PvP sense, but you're paying to have an easier time with, especially later game kind of challenges and side missions and whatnot. So I think before I, touch the open world Genshin stuff, it's just seeing the remnants of what makes the Nikki games that kind of immediately turned me off, because as someone who has been playing gacha games for over a decade now, I was just browsing the shop, and then you can kind of see the little tricks that they're doing of, hey, just pay $1, you'll get this outfit. Pay another $1, you'll get this outfit. Or your first recharge gives you this outfit. And while it's good to have a variety of different pieces, those are, your 3-star, your 4-star equivalent, where in reality you want your 5-star equivalents, you want your 6-star equivalent. So I don't know, just seeing right out the bat how intense the shop pages are, the shop sections are, that was immediately PTSD inducing for me, where I had to kind of back away and, not to pay attention to that and just go do what you have to do in this open world. And for the most part, it's actually a really competent open world adventure game. I do like how when you have to do specific actions like attack enemies that really remind me of the shadow creatures from Kingdom Hearts, or you have to jump, or you have to fish, those have their own dedicated outfits that when you do those mechanics switch on the fly. And you get those right off the bat. But again, that's just another area that this game can monetize players, where you're just doing the same thing. You're going around, you're meeting new people, you're finding treasure chests. And I think just having such a different wrapper around it, like the premise of the Nikki games is so absurd. It is technically a fashion dress-up stylist game in this, bloodthirsty kind of overworld full of, political struggle, empires, and fighting for land. But it's, I think, just the aesthetic alone, the kind of outrageous premise is enough to invite people to kind of check this out. I know it's kind of weird when they announce how many downloads a game has, just because you always wonder, how much of that is people re-rolling. But at the end of the day, I think you're pretty okay not re-rolling, because let's face it, if you try to roll a good item from a gacha, chances are you're getting one piece of a set that needs 10 pieces to complete. So
Yeah.
I got a question.
What's up?
It's kind of like something I've brought up on past episodes with gacha games as well, but I am curious, with this being a new release, what exactly is it that incentivizes you to look for the rare items beyond just the fact that the developer is calling it a rare item?
So in the case of the Nikki games, again, these are outfits. These are complete outfits that, sure, it's kind of an arbitrary thing that the developers say, hey, this is a 5-star, this is a 6-star item. But at the same time, those higher rarity items usually have a lot more kind of production put into them. Like, they're more elaborate, they're more extravagant, like, and at the end of the day, the Nikki games are these dress up customization games. So sure, you might not say they release a gacha that's a 5-star. And like, to be honest, some of the 5-star dress outfits right now, not necessarily my style. So for me, I can kind of skip that. But again, it's kind of that predatory nature of a gacha game where they're either trying to hook someone that's a completionist or hook someone through, hey, this dress, this character, this weapon looks a certain way that is just visually appealing, mechanically appealing to the person, to the player, and that's what they want to roll for. So it's, to answer kind of your question, like what makes them special, it's essentially they look cool and the person who wants to roll it thinks they look really cool. So I think that's always going to be that, or they want to just are a completionist and want to complete the collection.
For sure.
So
yeah, I guess it's just like
that, yeah,
how I approach these games, right? Like, I mean, we were talking like a few minutes ago about only jumping into gacha games that are like, established franchises. So like, I know at that point what I personally would find valuable in something like a One Piece game, right? So I knew what my personal end game would have been for something along those lines. So yeah, I guess like I'm just kind of like interested in it. It is interesting and it's curious. So yeah, I was just figuring like, I might ask about that. But it sounds like there's enough incentive to look into at least some of like the rare items and things like that in this game.
Yeah, well, that's like kind of at its core if you want to progress through kind of the Nikki games in general, where I think as a game, especially to introduce people to this world that you can explore, I think the game does do enough, at least early on, that makes you want to explore. I think the story has enough ridiculousness to make you want to stick around just to see how this further plays out. Because again, Mirrorland is a place that is governed by, a curse that says no violence can be committed against another person. That's why you have to settle all your conflict through, stylus battles. And once you get past that premise, and then it kind of gets into the weird story, not the weird story stuff, but the story stuff you wouldn't expect, plus the mechanics, plus the exploration. And for the most part, I think the world looks nice. The NPCs have that uncanny valley feel of, they look too doll-like for my liking, where I think NPCs in the 2D environments of, Love Nikki were a lot more charming, where when I look at them in Infinity Nikki, I feel a bit more off-putting. But yeah, once you I think there's enough for you to kind of experience what Mirrorland has to offer. And I only warn you that if you want to kind of go deeper in the collection aspect, it's going to be a commitment. That's something you would need to not only kind of pick and choose which gacha you roll, but it might end up being really costly. But I think, again, as a game, I definitely recommend it as a novelty, especially if this is something, if the premise alone is wacky enough to catch your interest. And I do feel like you can kind of get away without casually rolling with the currency you do receive in game, just to kind of trek along. But again, it's when that live service aspect happens, the bi-weekly events, the higher, whatever the raid equivalents will be, that's when you would want to consider gacha. And then that's when you seriously have to think, how much more do I want to explore that element of the game, as opposed to just the adventure nature of the game. And it's similar to kind of Genshin, where I do think with Genshin, and even we discussed this lately, Matt, about Zenless Zone Zero, where I feel like you can still get a lot of the story elements, the event elements, in between the trial stuff, in between your free pulls. And you can get a pretty good experience. But again, it's if you want to go deeper. It's if you like a particular character or you want to push higher difficulties for certain endgame modes and mechanics. I feel like that's gacha in a nutshell, where that's when you want to really look into the gacha stuff. But if you just want the basic casual experience, I think there is enough to Infinity Nikki to at least,
Jaren,
what's up?
So, one thing that I actually really am wondering about Infinity Nikki is that, like, you've said before that the gacha, or you've said already that the gacha stuff revolves around, getting new clothes and stuff.
Yep.
And you are using them for, I think you said, like, fashion battles and whatnot.
Yes.
The way you've described it so far, in my head, I'm really kind of just only seeing it as the dresses are stat sticks.
Yep.
Do, like, the clothes have a functional difference between them?
It's more so cosmetic from what I've seen so far. So at least with Love Nikki, it was of essentially a visual novel, and you're just Nikki herself always looked like her default Nikki appearance, where at least with Infinity Nikki, if you get a new clothing item you like, or if you craft it, you can just equip it, and then you're running around the overworld with those clothes on. So there's that functionality added to it, where yes, at its core, at least in my sick brain, they are stat sticks, but at least I was kind of impressed that you're still able to wear the dresses in the overworld, and that gives them a bit more appeal than normal. But yeah, long-winded way of me saying, like, check it out if it's something that sounds interesting to you, but just, maybe pump the brakes when it gets to the gacha, unless you really want to commit, as someone who committed too much time to Love Nikki Dress Up Queen. And the fact that Dress Up Darling is now in my vocabulary over Dress Up Queen makes me feel some type of ways. But that's my free-to-play gaming experience. Well, for now, anyway. I did check out another game that we can get into a bit later, but... So, Matt. As someone personally who is more into the digital gaming side of things right now, I believe you have another physical board game for us to consider. Matt, what have you been playing this week?
Actually, I think I may have slightly misled you on what I'm bringing to this.
Oh, okay.
Because I have for a very, very long time, been interested in kind of puzzly type things. And
fair.
There was something that I was kind of talking about with one of my friends for the past few weeks, where it's something called Cryptic Puzzles. And I feel like I want to go into a little kind of dive backwards in time to what brought me to Cryptic Puzzles specifically.
Matt, before you get into that, I just realized you were saying Cryptic Puzzles instead of Cryptid Puzzles.
Oh.
And I honestly thought this was Ogopogo round 2.
Oh, no, Jaren, no.
Is our boy Ogopogo not making an appearance this week?
Ogopogo will not be making an appearance this week, Jaren.
It's all right, Matt. That's all right. But Matt, please kind of lift the veil for this Cryptic Puzzles that you've been looking into.
Okay. So I think basically this fascination for me started way back in Dungeons and Dragons.
Fair.
Because I don't know if you guys are aware, but in Dungeons and Dragons and in real life as well, this was a real life thing. For the rogue style classes, there was an ability called Thieves' Cant. Thieves' Cant? Thieves' Cant. C-A-N-T. Thieves C-A-N-T. I'm not really sure where to put the enunciation on that particular word. But
it's okay, Matt. This is a safe zone as someone who mispronounces words all the time.
But basically what that is pseudo talking. Talking to somebody without, talking to somebody in normal, I guess, speech, while really you are talking in sort of a puzzle to them that outsiders wouldn't understand.
A code, a secret code.
Secret codes,
if
yes.
you will.
Essentially, it is secret codes. And, when I was looking into this, I realized, hey, a lot of, common word meanings these days originally came from real thieves' cant. Like a fence, like, person who sells
Right.
selling goods, lifting for stealing, like rat as an informant, swindler for like a liar. Like all of these words came to kind of English because of thieves' cant in their normal or in like how we use them today. And I don't know, just like going through how people would use it was so interesting because like I actually took down an example or made an example based on like actual thieves' cant because I always thought that this thing was interesting. So an example conversation of someone trying to sell, stolen goods would be something like, hey, I'm looking to fence off an area. Do you know any good carpenters? Oh, how big of an area are you planning to contain? Oh, maybe 500 to 700 square feet. That is a decent-sized area. Are you planning to do any building in there? It's like, yeah, I was gifted some berry bushes, and I want to try planting them. And, taking key words from there of like, oh, I want to build a fence means, or I'm trying to find a carpenter who would build a fence. It's like, oh, trying to find someone who will sell dirty goods. And then it's like, oh, how big of an area is basically how much. In this case, this was from like what do you call it, Dungeons and Dragons. So how big of an area? It's like, oh, 500 to 700 square feet would be like, oh, 500 to 700 gold pieces. And then, oh, what are you planning to build in there? It's like, oh, I'm going to start a garden of berries. It's like, oh, I'm going to be selling precious jewels. Like that sort of thing I always thought was so interesting, but I didn't think that I would really have anyone to like pull into learning a thieves' cant to use in a Dungeons and Dragons game. So that always kind of just existed as a, pie in the sky for me to reach for someday.
Right.
But very recently, I found out about Cryptic Puzzles, which are a style of crossword. Crossword is the one where you're like filling in words in
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Crosswords. And it like originated in Britain where, the clues for this crossword, the crossword works like normally like any other crossword where you're filling in words onto like that like square grid and whatnot. But the clues are all real, just like fucked up word sentence garbles that you have to decode almost like you're trying to interpret thieves' cant. And I don't know, this stuff is just so interesting to me because it feels like I'm finally able to play in my thieves' cant world. And
Okay.
I don't know, like just and kind of like racking my brain on trying to understand how they are talking in these essentially riddles is, I don't know, really fun for me right now. And I'm having such a good time whenever I, find a new way that they've tried to explain a riddle or like, word choice to me. And I just get so hyped at it.
Okay. Matt, as someone who has, discussed on this podcast in the past about, those, I guess, detective games, logic-based games, something like a Golden Idol, something like even an Ace Attorney. Do you think you're like for that genre kind of, I don't know, it kind of speaks to why you're into kind of these cryptic exchanges as well?
Oh yeah, I like me a good kind of like logic sort of game to go through. Like, Rakush, we kind of like went through that phase of just like, kind of doing Sudokus, watching what was the name of that YouTube channel with the British
The
dude?
Killer Sudokus.
Yeah. I'm just trying to wait. Do you remember the name?
Cracking the Cryptic.
Cracking the Cryptic, yes. Like
Or
kind of just
I don't know if it was cracking, but it was something the Cryptic.
and kind of just like watching that guy solve puzzles or, just those Sudokus. Even though I wasn't the one solving them, it made me feel good.
Yeah.
And that guy was like so enthusiastic about it too, that like, it really added to the experience.
Yeah, I get it.
And doing these kind of cryptic puzzles are, for me, so interesting because it is, like I said, trying to like decode a coded message. And of course, I can't kind of just like, talk abstractly about these. I brought some of the very easy ones that were some of the first ones that I solved.
Okay.
And I want to kind of just like run them by you just to show you like what kind of puzzles we're dealing with here.
All right.
So, okay, so the way that these work is that like it's going to give a kind of like clue and then a number. The number just tells you how many letters the word is. So the first one that I'm bringing is House of Pain debuts Jump Around 3.
Okay.
And that is the puzzle. You have to figure out what the word is from that puzzle. And the way that these things work is that there is a cryptic portion and a straight portion, where the straight portion is the actual kind of like clue that you would get normally in a crossword. And then the cryptic portion is like the secondary clue for more so what the word is, and you have to break it down.
Okay. So, Matt, as someone who is dumb and I'm already confused at what's happening right now, when you first, unless Rakush, you want to try solving
I think I have a rough idea, but could you just repeat the last part, Matt? Repeat the puzzle and then repeat the rule, I guess. Sorry, that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
So the puzzle itself is House of Pain debuts Jump Around.
Yes.
And then like the process is, one part of that is the straight part, one part of it is the cryptic part. The straight part being like, hey, this is like a very straightforward hint, and then the cryptic part is the puzzly portion of the hint, and you put them together to get like your answer.
Isn't there like a number 3 that you mentioned as well?
Yes, and then 3 at the end to tell you that there are 3. The word is 3 letters long.
Oh.
The word is 3 letters long. House of Pain debuts Jump Around 3. That's a good one.
And then the way that this is solved is that Jump Around, you're not really like told specifically, but Jump Around is the straight portion of this riddle, I guess.
Yeah.
And then the cryptic part is House of Pain debuts. And what they're talking about here is that debuts is your magic thieves' cant word here. Because now you know, debuts, that's like start. House of Pain, the start of House of Pain is HOP. Hop is jump around. So your answer is hop.
Oh.
Okay. That's a tough one. Because I feel like there's a lot of like, it's got some escape room elements to it, I guess, right?
Yeah. To be honest, that's one of the easy ones. I think one of the more like interesting ones, and one of the first ones that I saw kind of get explained and solved to me is a record hospital in a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. 5. And this is a far more kind of like difficult version of this puzzle because it's taking multiple kind of like twists on what this is. So,
sorry, could you repeat that?
A record hospital in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. 5.
5 letters.
5 letters, yes.
A record hospital in a Alcoholic Anonymous meeting. Jaren, you want to take a stab at that?
No, but I think this is one of the things where, Matt, when you presented the jump around question, since, again, this is something that I never really considered before. Not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but I always think it's, I'm blanking on like what term I want to use to describe this, but you kind of answering it with hop kind of contextualizes kind of how to think about approaching this type of kind of puzzle. And I always find that so fascinating, where one of the best ways for me, at least in terms of learning when it comes to kind of game mechanics, is to see, the end result first, just to kind of contextualize what I should be building towards, or at least how I should be thinking of it, where you explaining how you get to hop from that kind of question, I guess, kind of that puzzle, really not not necessarily opens it up, but kind of in a way also confines it to I need to think a certain way. I need to consider certain words. Where with this more difficult one that you present, now I'm instead of just thinking about the House of Pain and the Jump Around song, I'm going through each of the different words, how they kind of relate to each other, what different meanings could be at play. Again, as to Rakush's point, kind of tackling it like I would tackle a escape room, where I think I need to write this out, stare at it a bit longer, and actually play around with the paper, where that's a long-winded way of saying I'm nowhere close to an answer, but at least I understand what's being asked of me now.
Matt, is the answer booze?
And
No, it is not.
Damn. I tried.
Okay.
so, Matt,
I understand how you got there, Rakush. That's actually a pretty good I think thought process. But yeah, it's not booze.
as someone who has solved this one, can you also break this down, how you approach this one in particular?
So, the key word in a record hospital in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting is that a record is kind of like the straight part, and then everything else is kind of the cryptic part.
So Matt, before you go on, how do you personally determine what the straight word is?
You kind of just have to read through the whole puzzle, because I think instead of me trying to find what the straight word is first, I'm trying to find what the cryptic part is first.
Okay.
And in this case, the cryptic word is in. So, in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, another word or another way to phrase an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting is AA, right? Like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
So, you are putting a word into AA. So, it's going to be a 5-letter word with A at the start and then A at the end.
Oh, that's sneaky. That's a sneaky
Alpha?
one.
Yes, it's alpha. Because a record is an LP, and then a hospital is like shortened to H. So the word is alpha.
Wow.
But, okay. So this is where it's a little bit weird for me, I guess, like, kind of looking at the sentence given, right? Because if I take a look at what to me stands out as the odd word, it would be record. But you're saying record is played straight, basically, right? So
that's an LP,
guess,
right? Yeah.
Well, sorry. So I guess what I mean is, like you said, there's a cryptic part and then there's the regular part of a sentence. So if I read that full sentence, to me, like, record would have been the cryptic part. So it's interesting that you said that was the regular part. So yeah.
I mean, I think it's just because, like, record and hospital are the most. I think record hospital could also be considered the straight part together. It's the more so in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that is the cryptic, because that is setting up the basis of the kind of type of puzzle, right?
Sure.
Because, like, it is. That is like the trickier part, because that is the word you have to split. And when you're kind of looking at these puzzles, you're looking for kind of keywords, something like, if you see like the word heard, you're maybe looking for a puzzle that has something to do with homophones, right? Because it's like hearing, or if you see something like returned or returned, you're thinking of maybe, hey, the puzzle has something to do with a reversed word, and it's kind of more so about, like, first learning the code words, and then, or the code, I guess, it's not always like the same word, but you're looking for, like, kind of, words that fit within this family, and then you're trying to reverse the puzzle or create the puzzle that way. And I don't know. I always thought that this is just a very interesting kind of, like, thing to look at and smash my head against, for lack of a better phrase.
It's super interesting, and I would love to try it out a little bit. I think one of the bigger disconnects of just kind of like talking about it right now is not having a visual reference. Like Jaren was saying, right? To kind of speak to his point a little bit. He needs to write it down. And I think I would also need to write it down, or like at least say like if it's on a card, maybe just kind of like staring at it might help me, like, I don't know, like get laser powers or something that, like, just shoot right through the card. I don't know, man. But like, there's something to be said about, like, sometimes playing these games and having a visual reference there.
Yes. Yeah, I think when we put the episode up and have like the show post and whatnot, I'll send Jaren a kind of like a link that the New Yorker wrote about like
Okay.
kind of breaking into cryptic puzzles, and it has like sample puzzles in there and whatnot as well.
Final question to you, Matt, is where are you finding these puzzles that you're tackling on? And is this a daily thing for you?
It is. I want it to be a daily thing, but honestly, it takes me more than a day to like solve these. But
Okay, fair.
the Globe and Mail website puts out a daily cryptic puzzle, but kind of like the New York Times regular crossword, they get harder throughout the week. So really, I'm kind of limited to only like Mondays for now.
Hey, man, that's still a starting point, and you can track progress in that regard. But man, now I'm thinking there are probably a lot of different adventure games, logic games, even visual novel games that do lift these type of puzzles. And probably ones I've done in the past that I just can't recall right now. Where, Matt, have there been any game series that has, that have cryptic puzzles that kind of stick out to you or just come to mind? Or is this something that you might just now be actively engaging with or looking for when you're trying to decide what to play?
I mean, I can't really think of any off the top of my head that had cryptic puzzles, but with the way that this sort of thing is written, I wouldn't be surprised if some games had it. And, this is something that you can really just look at and never really process that it was supposed to be a puzzle, right?
Fair.
Like that it's supposed to be a hiding in plain sight sort of, wording. And yeah, like I think I am going to be kind of looking for more stuff like this in games itself, but to be honest, I feel like this is a sort of thing that would be weird to show up in games. Like it's giving me that same vibe of I think it was like 9 hours, 9 rooms, 9 people or whatever.
999.
Yeah, that just had like, oh, here's your visual novel, and then the very end puzzle is a Sudoku that you're solving through time or something.
Yeah, I feel like if you're gamifying it, like there has to be a certain logic, one associated with the game, but two that allows you to start it, right? Like you need something to get started on the quiz. Like going back to Killer Sudokus, like the reason I actually really like playing those, and the reason I really like kind of like solving those, is because it's giving you, even if it's just one thing, it's giving you one thing, right? And it helps you understand the structure of a puzzle. So this is interesting. I don't know if it would work in like a video game setting unless it like ties into contextual things of the video game itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. And all I know is Steam's been recommending me a lot of escape room type games. So who knows? Maybe if I start looking for more cryptic puzzles, something might come out there. Something might indeed. But Matt, any closing thoughts on your exploration of this genre of puzzle?
It makes my brain hurt sometimes, but getting a puzzle feels really, really good. And I don't know, it's a feeling that I'm just chasing right now.
Fair enough, Matt. Fair enough. But Matt, speaking about not having a lot of information in front of you at a particular moment and trying to feel your way around it to find a solution. Boys, I've been playing another free-to-play game that's come out, really recently. I've been playing some Marvel Rivals, and let me just tell you, when you jump into quick play and you don't know any of these characters, what they do, what their mechanics are, what their abilities are, you're pretty much trying to solve a cryptic puzzle, in my opinion, because I'm actually surprised at how many characters are in the introductory hero pool when you start this game up. Where, Rakush, I know you thought about trying it out, but you learned that this is a hero shooter. But maybe I can help inform your decision a bit further to see if you should jump in or not. But
Sure.
Matt, remember in, oh God, I hate to say this, was it 2016 when we recorded the last Saturday Morning Arcade episode on Overwatch before we went into that hiatus. And remember that feeling of, just this is something new for us. This is something out of our gaming wheelhouse at the time. And there were a lot of possibilities where at its core, Marvel, rest in peace, Marvel Heroes. At its core, Marvel Rivals is that Overwatch-esque hero shooter with a Marvel coat of paint, where you and 5 other teammates go up against a team of 6, and you're either trying to capture points, push payloads, and essentially fight using your abilities, where you have your tankish characters, your DPS type characters, and your not necessarily support, but more
utility.
Utility off mechanic character types. Where at the time when I first booted it up, there were 33 characters available for you to choose. Everyone is available at the jump. I think in terms of a monetization model, as someone who was poo-pooing the gotcha-ness of Infinity Nikki, I think this is more on the fair side of you can buy costumes. From what I understand, the battle pass is everlasting. You buy it once and you just can complete it at your own pace, and new battle passes will come out in the future. But at its core, this is a 6v6 hero shooter, and right off the rip, having to kind of consider 33 heroes, their abilities, what they do, their roles in a game, is really overwhelming, because I don't remember how many heroes Overwatch originally launched with, but it wasn't 33. And they all range from melee characters to projectile characters to trap characters. And as someone who instantly did the initial tutorial where you play as the Punisher, where surprise, he's Soldier 76, you're playing Call of Duty, that kind of informs you lightly of what to expect. Jumping straight into quick play and choosing magic, because I love magic. Boys, needless to say, I went 0-5 before I switched to Psylocke and went 12-0, and it's one of those games where without that initial, I feel like I need to look into every hero before I actually start trying to play this game, because after my first game of just running Psylocke, I started, okay, every time I die, I'm just going to pick a new character. And it's rough out there, because even though your DPS will act like a normal DPS, once you get into the tanks, once you get into the utility characters, that's where you're trying to learn on the fly. And at least the game is pretty new, and let's face it, it's just chaos out there where everyone's trying to experiment. That I find this is a good opportunity just to try it out without really looking too deep into it. But it's once that meta starts to settle, once everyone starts to get their strats down, once everyone knows the maps, that's where I think I'm less inclined to kind of continue with this game, just because as someone who played his fair share of Overwatch, as much as I like the gameplay in general, I don't think this is a game for me. Where, Matt, as someone who also has experience with hero shooters, does Marvel Rivals do anything for you? Does it make you want to check it out?
I mean, personally for me, Marvel Rivals doesn't seem to be doing, anything too different. Because I honestly, whenever I see this game, I'm kind of just mentally comparing it to Overwatch, and I don't want to play more Overwatch.
Fair.
But I do, like to see, hey, like, what are they going to do with Venom? What are they going to do with Iron Man? What are they going to do with, like, all these, like, pretty iconic heroes? Like, I'm looking at the character roster right now, and this is, like, a very good roster, I think.
Yeah. Right off the rip, there's a lot of just characters you would expect, but also characters that I'm surprised are there, especially at launch as well. Where I know in terms of things that it does different from Overwatch, you learn this in the tutorial. You can hit like the B key, for example, just to kind of trigger this brief, I don't want to call it detective vision, but it will kind of mark what's destructible in the environment. So if you want to kind of create a path, or if you want to try to, break the environment, so you might have more cover, or you might have a better line of sight towards the enemies or the point you're trying to defend or capture. I think that can be really cool. And there's also the fact that depending on what characters are on your team, you'll have these different team up abilities, which also makes me worried, where once the meta settles, you might have people who are, really good with one character who might want his team to be able to supplement their character with the team abilities. And I think this is definitely, once you really get into the mechanics, something that lends itself better with playing with friends, where once the quick play meta starts to establish itself, I'm really going to hide chat real quick if someone tells me to pick someone just so the team abilities can be used. But the one thing I did want to note about this game, I love the aesthetic. I love the visuals. I love the overall style it's going for. I think all of the characters, at least the iterations that are presented in Marvel Rivals, look great. Visually, I like. It's not. Matt, would you say it's not really cel shading, but it is kind of. It does have a style to it that I think lends itself to longevity. Nothing overly realistic, but it's still pretty clean. And again, these are characters that might know and love, but how they're being presented, like that Psylocke, really good looking Psylocke. So, Rakush, as someone who was not necessarily on the fence, has anything I said made you a bit more curious or kind of enforce your decision to stay away?
I mean, my favorite part of this segment was that you started with the concept that you're going to convince me to play this, but then midway through you're like, I don't know if this game's for me in the long term.
Yeah. I think that's what the genre does to you.
Yeah. I think you've convinced me that I made the right choice. So thank you for that.
It's a pretty game. I think it's a well-functioning game. It plays well enough, but again, I have my own fair share of Overwatch, and I think I'm okay with the bite-sized taste I've been able to have, where I think this is definitely one of those games where I just like to look at it, where, I don't know, maybe 6 months down the road, I'll reinstall it just to look at, who are the new characters? What are the costumes out there? And maybe run around the tutorial as that character just to see their animations, because again, even the animations look pretty good as well. So a lot higher quality than, I don't know why I was expecting this just to be a quote unquote Overwatch ripoff, but I'm excited to see it if it's able to stand on its own, because again, if the Marvel wrapping doesn't appeal to you, I'm not sure how long you might be into that gameplay, because there's so many other alternatives out there already that you might have, skins for already, hours in already. So
for sure.
I don't know.
And
that's
Yeah, you kind of alluded to this a little bit as well, but with PvP games, just generally one of like my biggest pet peeves is when game metas come into play, right? Like, you got to play the game this way. And especially if it's like a team versus team kind of thing, where like, League of Legends, like a MOBA game is like that, Dota's like that, Overwatch is like that, all these games are kind of like that. And I personally just kind of feel stymied in those things, right? Where it's like, man, I like this character, I want to experiment with the character. But then with a game like this, you're just kind of stuck having to do a very specific role with the character itself. These are assumptions. I have not played this game, of course, right? So please do correct me if this is not what the kind of game, like, what kind of game this is, but it just kind of feels to me like generally with PvP games nowadays, there's like very defined roles, and there you just kind of like, yeah, like you have to play it a certain way, or like your teammates will get angry, and I'm like, I don't want that anymore with games, you know, like I just kind of want to like lay back, you know, spend my sweet ass time doing whatever I want in the game, whatever I want on the world, and like get to the story when I get to the story kind of stuff. And I think like ultimately that has been the case for me for like, you know, at least like 6-7 maybe longer years. But like, yeah, it just doesn't it's not the Marvel part that doesn't appeal to me, it is the PvP part specifically that doesn't appeal to me, and it's been that case for like damn near a decade. So like it's gonna be difficult for me to get me into that at this point.
No, that's fair. And yeah, as I kind of said, I think if there's any time to check it out, even if you have like an inkling to try it out, this would be the time, just because game's still new, it's still fresh, the meta hasn't really developed yet from what I've seen. And again, you go into quick play, it will tell you, hey, your team doesn't have a tank, or your team doesn't have a utility character. Someone should probably roll that, and you have 6 people going in as DPSs. It's that experimental stage right now. It's really chaotic. I'm not sure if rank's available because I've just been queuing into quick play. So yeah, I like it. But not enough to keep with it, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does.
But yeah.
I do have one last question before you move on from this game, right? Because I think it's no secret that the Marvel movies haven't necessarily been the best quality, and they really kind of lost a lot of the momentum that they had at the end of Infinity War. Do you feel like this, and maybe this question is irrelevant in a couple of weeks if this game just kind of blows up and it's like the most popular thing in the world, but do you feel like this game would have been better served being released at the peak of those Marvel movie popularity, or is it fine releasing now, I guess?
I mean, it's hard to argue when Marvel was, say, at its peak, not to try to capitalize on it as much as you would want to or be able to, where, of course, I think that if it came out during the peak of the MCU craze, this would probably do better. But, you know, you have, what was it, 400k concurrent on Steam. You have 10 million registered players, apparently, from what I saw earlier, where I think it is the Marvel license is opening the door, and it being free to play, even though Overwatch is free to play now, is still getting enough to get people to at least check it out. And I guess moving forward, it's how the team's able to do balance their content, their events, to see if they're able to maintain that audience. But you know, to your point of how much of this would benefit tying into the MCU better, or at least leveraging that popularity, I think that's what I appreciate the most of it. Is it seems to have its own identity. It seems to have a style that is less influenced by the MCU, but more so that kind of, you know, manga adjacent Marvel stuff that we've seen in the past too, you know, those alt timelines, those alt stories, where I think the fact that this takes place in essentially a Neo Tokyo Marvel really tries to push it away from the current sensibilities of the MCU, in my opinion. And I think you want to leverage the Marvel license, but you also want it to stand on its own, given, you know, as you were alluding to, Rakush, the current state of how people are receiving the MCU, for better and for worse. So, but at the end of the day, you know, Galacta is your announcer, and that's really all I needed to check out the game in the first place. So Marvel Rivals, free to play right now. Check it out if hero shooters are your thing, or Marvel heroes are your thing. Rest in peace to Marvel heroes. I miss you daily.
Yeah.
And boys, I feel like this has already been a Beefy Boy episode, but real quick. Rakush, did you watch Dandadan this week?
I did.
What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, another bridge episode, like, you know, wholesome moments. Looking forward to how they finish the season. Is it 12 or 13 episodes?
I believe it was 12. So I think two more, I believe 11 and 12.
Interesting.
And they just introduced Gigi at the end. Yeah, as you said, it is that in between an action episode, more slice of life adjacent. I will say that one thing I've come to really appreciate from the series is just how they're treating the concept of a family meal. And, you know, either by inviting Ira to join them to eat or inviting the space alien to eat with them. Just that concept and reoccurring imagery of, hey, let's just have all these characters come together around a meal and, for the most part, talk it out, is such a good contrast to me personally to the action scenes that make the slice of life episodes, you know, the bridge episodes, really stand on its own and gives them their own identity, which I have come to appreciate. Gigi, as we said, introduced at the end of the episode, seems to be that childhood character archetype. Matt, what do you think of the surprise childhood friend, potential love rival archetype in romance anime?
I mean, it sounds kind of weird that they're introducing it not at the start. I feel like that should be, you know, one of your starter, what do you call it, characters?
To be fair, this is essentially, so with Ira, that's, from what we see, Momo's foil, and I guess now they're introducing a character to serve as Okarune's foil, I believe. So I think it is a late introduction in the season, but I feel like it makes sense in terms of introducing a foil for Okarune. Rakush, without really getting into it, just based on your experience with the manga, are you looking forward to this finale arc?
I am, but same thing with the last arc. I don't know how much they're going to fit into 2 episodes. And like this one felt like one of the first sort of like, not long arcs, but like longer than a few chapter arcs. So I am kind of curious how they make this happen in like 2 episodes and also, you know, kind of like set up the next season and things like that as well. So yeah, interested to see what happens.
Okay.
The other thing I am curious about, because the opening song for this one has gotten extremely catchy. It's like a earworm song in such a cool way. I have no idea how they're going to replace it. No, it's the opening for this season, right? I have no idea how they're going to replace that for season 2, because this song is really good.
I mean, they could just use it again. I'm pretty sure that for what is it, Mashal, they just used the same opening for the second season, didn't they?
I wouldn't hate it. Maybe like, you know, like a quote unquote remix of it or something like that. I wouldn't hate it, but man, like it's they started off really strong with it, so I don't know.
I think for Mashal, the Creepy Nuts song was the season 2 OP.
Oh,
I think it had
it?
a different one for season 1.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, maybe they're
So
going to
I guess we'll see for season 3. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about Creepy Nuts OP that the first time I heard the Mashal OP from Creepy Nuts, I found it immediately off-putting. But, you know, as Rakush said, they make earworms, and, you know, both of them heavy rotation. Not getting into it just because we do have our Things of the Year episode coming up. But yeah, those 2 songs in particular did somehow appear on my top 50 most played songs of the year. So take that for what you will. And Matt, there's only one way to end this Beefy Boy episode. You, maybe in less cryptic terms, Matt, can you give us a Don't Match Me challenge this week?
Yeah, of course I can. And, you know, I'm going to be doing a Don't Match Me challenge. And the rules, as always, are going to be that I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You, the listener, need to give 5 answers. All you have to do with your answers is make sure that they don't match my answers. You know, of course, that is the normal difficulty of the Don't Match Me challenge. If you want to play on a harder difficulty, you can try not to match not only me, but Jaren and Rakush as well. And as always, this is a podcast, so if you need more time to think of an answer, you can just pause us, because we're going to be there on the other end. Now, you know, earlier this week, you know, our pal, our host, co-host, Rakush, sent a video of him starting up his PS5. On that,
Oh man, we didn't even talk about that.
it was the classic PlayStation 1 startup theme on, the PS5, which I am hearing now that a lot of people are very sad that they are probably going to be taking away once, the 30th anniversary of like PlayStation is like past.
So just to clarify, it's not just the PS1 option. I believe you can change it to, if I remember correctly, you can do PS1, PS2, or PS3 themed menus. And I don't know if that also includes the startup, but like there are some different options there.
No, I believe it included the startup
Yeah.
as well, from what people were talking about.
It's just the PS1 version. Just they got me, man. They hooked me.
It slaps.
The nostalgia, just hook, line, and sinker.
So, in honor of the 30th PlayStation anniversary, I have decided to do a PlayStation-based Don't Match Me challenge.
That's a good one.
So, these are all going to be
Matt,
PlayStation-based
can I play
questions.
psychic for 2 seconds here? Is one of your questions pick one of the PlayStation consoles?
You know it is.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, let's start this PlayStation Don't Match Me at, question 1 instead of Rakush starting it at my question 5. So, my first question is, name any game that debuted as a PlayStation exclusive. So, it doesn't have to be, the first game in its series. It doesn't have to be, the last game in the series. As long as when it debuted, it was a PlayStation exclusive. So, name that game in 3, 2, 1. I've gone with Shadow of the Colossus.
Ooh,
Oh, that's a good one.
good one, Matt. Rakush, what did you go with?
Infamous.
Rakush, are you a cool boy?
A what? Oh, the character.
His name. Yeah.
Man, it's been forever since I played this game. I do want to play Second Son as well, so maybe I'll remember this next time you ask me this question.
Fair enough. I went with Medieval.
I
Oh,
forgot
that's that
about
PS2 game, right?
I played it on the PS1.
And it's spelled like Medieval.
It had Sir something something the Skeleton Man
Yeah,
on the cover.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's a pull, dude.
That's a cut. That's a good cut.
That's a deep dive.
Pretty sure it had a remake recently, but I'll always love that Skeleton Man.
All right. So, going on to question 2, kind of similar to my question 1, but name any game franchises that have had a game on every PlayStation home console.
Oof.
Wait. So from PS1 to PS5, it has had
Yes.
to have had a game on all 5 consoles?
So, name any franchise that has had a game on every console from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 5. Not counting the Vita and like the PSP. Also, keep in mind that this doesn't have to be like a first-party game. It can just be, any franchise that has had a game on every single PlayStation console. So name that franchise in 3, 2, 1. I think I've gone with a very popular one here of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that makes
Classic.
sense.
Classic.
Yeah, that's a good
Safe it. That's a safe one. That's also a safe one.
I'm going to go with the MLB games,
Ooh.
starting with MLB 99.
Oh, damn. Right, sports game. Duh. Oh, my God. Right. Rakush, right. You're. Damn. Okay. So last year for Christmas, I bought my brother Resident Evil 4 for the PlayStation 5.
Yes.
So I'm going to hope Resident Evil has been on every single platform. We have Resident Evil 1, 2 on the PS1. PS2, probably Resident Evil 4 came on the PS.
It came out on the PS4 afterwards. It wasn't an initial launch. It was a GameCube
Right.
exclusive and then a PS2 game after.
Yes.
That's okay.
PS2, PS3
Resident Evil
was
5.
PS3. Okay, Resident 5, and then PS4. I'm thinking
The Resident Evil remakes.
7.
And
remakes the 7. Okay. So yeah, Resident Evil.
You're good.
That should work. That should
you
work.
got it. You
Was
got it.
PT a Resident Evil game, or is that something else?
PT
That was
is Silent Hill.
supposed to be Silent Hill. Rest in peace, Kojima.
He's alive.
Not that-
He's alive. He's alive.
Rest in peace, Konami Kojima. I guess.
R.I.P. in peace. All right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Keeley, for offending you.
Okay, going on to question 3. You know, here on the mistake zone, we talk a lot about Super Smash Brothers.
Yes.
But, you know,
I know. Nah. Okay.
You gotta play PlayStation its due. So, name any character in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Okay, I got it.
You know, the PlayStation.
I got it immediately. I think I might be out here, but I had to go with
Okay.
who I thought.
All right. So, name that character in 3, 2, 1. I'm going with, I think the only character I really had any competency with in that game, Nathan Drake.
Matt, I knew it. I knew it. You
That
were
was
gonna pick him.
option 2 for me. That was option 2 for me.
I'm out
Damn.
I'm out.
You're out?
because
Damn.
Matt knows back in the day before he was nerf, Nathan Drake, his circle, the barrel attack, destroyed people in that game. It was unfair. I should have went with Parappa.
Oh, man.
See, I was gonna go with Sackboy.
Ooh.
Sackboy's a good pick. Man,
Yeah.
that was an interesting roster.
I was
Yeah.
going through that roster for this question. I was surprised. I totally forgot that Big Daddy was on that roster.
Yes.
That's a Twisted Metal character, right?
No, but Bioshock.
yeah.
Oh,
Sweet
yeah,
Tooth
yeah,
is
yeah.
Twisted Metal, Bioshock, Big Daddy was
Right.
in it. Yeah, it had Isaac from Dead Space in it, correct? I think he was DLC.
Yes, I think so.
Matt, since you looked at it recently, who were other surprises that you remembered where it was in the game?
I mean, I feel like Big Daddy was honestly the biggest surprise
Yeah.
to me just because it doesn't scream PlayStation franchise in my head. I was reminded of Sly Cooper, though. Sly Cooper was a cool guy.
They did pull through some like third parties as well to help flesh out that roster where I believe Snake wasn't in it, but was Raiden in it? I can't remember if there was a Metal Gear rep. that
Raiden
ended
was
up
in it, yeah.
being-
Raiden,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Of Revengeance fame, yes.
All right, so going on to question 4. Taking, a trip back 30 years to the original PlayStation. So what I want you to do is name any button on the original PlayStation controller. Any button. So this is the one that doesn't have the control sticks, so no L3, R3 nonsense here. Just name any button that was on that controller.
And this is the PS1, right?
Yeah, PS1.
Okay.
So there's like 14 buttons on this, I believe. So name that button in 3, 2, 1. I'm going with D-pad right.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna go with the select button.
Ooh, that was my
Good button.
That was the one I was gonna pick for trying to catch those sneakies. Jaren?
I went with L1.
Ooh, a good one.
That's a good range there. That's a good range of buttons.
I like a good shoulder button.
Yeah.
I like a good shoulder button.
We should do like a tier of like controller buttons across like different generations as a future episode.
We'll put that in the vault. We'll put that
Yeah.
in the vault and maybe open it up.
I feel like that's the trend right now. It's like we'll finish one of these and I'm like, here's a vault episode. Let's do it.
We'll get to it eventually.
Eventually.
But Matt, I might be out, but there's one more
Yes.
to go.
The question that Rakush revealed at the top of this segment. My question number 5. Name any of the PlayStation consoles. Limiting this to the home console, so no mobile nonsense here. Just name any of the PlayStation consoles from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 5.
Are
Okay.
we excluding the just the core consoles,
Core
or
consoles,
are you
base consoles
core
only,
consoles,
no
okay.
slim bullshit. Nothing
right?
like
No
that.
Slim, no Pro, no PS1 where the one was spelled out. I got you.
PSX.
Yep.
Okay, so it's just 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5. Those 5
Yes.
are your options. Okay.
Name that console in 3, 2, 1. Gotta go with that stupid TikTok meme that I can't get out of my head. It's me or the PS5.
Fuck. Okay, I lost.
Had to go with the PlayStation console I owned the most variants of. Had to go with the PS2.
I was like debating between the 5 and the 3 because of the because PlayStation has no games, and that was like PS3 thing.
Classic.
But then, like, I've been playing a lot of the PS5, and I really enjoy the PS5, so I was like, let me go with my heart here. Lesson learned. Don't follow your heart.
One of the questions that I threw away for this was name one of the launch games for the PS3, and I thought that list was a bit too short for putting it where I wanted to put it.
Before we lead off, so 5 generations of the PlayStation console. Of the 5 generations, how many of those generations did you have a PlayStation as your main console?
I think PS3 onwards, actually, for me, because PS1 I got quite late in the process. Like, I only got it in, like, the early 2000s, at which point the PS2 was already out. I never actually had a PS2 because it was quite expensive for a family that's newly immigrated. Games are expensive. The games were also, for a family, like, making a purchase decision on games not suitable for kids, I guess. So, yeah.
Okay. How about you, Matt?
I don't think that the PlayStation has ever been my main console. It has always been my, like, secondary.
I think for me, it was the PlayStation 2 only, where I've owned everything except the PlayStation 5, but for 1, 3, and 4, I think I got those way, way later in the generation, where, I was an N64 boy. I was a Xbox 360 boy, but then I did gravitate towards 3 towards the end of the generation, and yeah, straight up just an Xbox One boy. And I think for the PlayStation 4, that only played a few games, and mostly Fortnite. It became a Fortnite console at that point. But who knows during Boxing Day? I still need to play some Stellar Blade. But that has been the Don't Match Me challenge, Matt. Damn, you got us both. You got us both.
Got 'em.
So that's a dub for you. And that's been another episode of The Mistake Zone, where I think with the holidays coming up, just quick housekeeping. I think in terms, we'll I know one episode coming up is our Things of the Year, where we talk about just what we liked this year, kind of celebrate all the things we played, watched, listened to, and kind of just give some spotlight to that. I know this is something we all usually talk off air, but I know moving forward, I think Indiana Jones recently came out that I'll try to check out for next week. But as we wind down for 2024, is there anything you guys want to check out to bring to the Mistake Zone before the year is done?
Probably finishing up Yakuza, starting another Yakuza game, maybe starting Mass Effect 1.
Okay.
Just kind of throwback stuff.
Anything on the docket for you, Matt?
I mean, I'm deeply considering buying into Path of Exile 2.
Oh, oof. Okay, okay.
But,
Is that a multiplayer game?
Yeah, it's like a Diablo style game, an ARPG style game. But I don't know, like I'm very iffy on buying into it because Path of Exile 1 was slightly too hardcore for me in terms of kind of just like building. Because I never liked games that don't let you respec easily.
Right.
And they made it a little bit easier in Path of Exile 2 that it's intriguing enough for me to want to go into it. But I don't know, it's this weird value thing for me where, it is a $40-ish game Canadian, and you are actually just like paying for early access. Once it releases, it does become a free-to-play game.
Ooh, okay.
But that isn't going to be for at least like 6 months. So, I am debating on if I want to like kind of like jump in right now and see what's up. While it's a new hotness.
Matt, I was going to try to commit to finishing Metaphor, but we both know how that's going to go.
No.
But until then, I want to thank my best friends for joining me this week. Got to thank my best friend Matt for joining me this week, editing the podcast, another Beefy Boy podcast, and also bringing this week's Don't Match Me challenge.
Yo, thanks, Jaren. And as always, I want to thank you for hosting the show and bringing in some talk about pretty dresses.
Thanks, man. I want to also thank our boy Rakush for, coming here and picking the support role because he saw that we had a tank, we had a DPS, no support this episode, but he filled it in, and we were able to not completely lose the round. So thanks, Rakush.
Ariga, thanks for having me on the show.
I want to thank Nikki. I want to thank Kimmy. Real fans know who Kimmy is. I want to thank Squirrel Girl. I want to thank Ogopogo. And I want to thank Ira. I'll thank Ira this week. And that, with the thanks out of the way, please take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of pretty dresses.
I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about it more next week.